Welcome back, everyone, to the Buds Mafia YouTube channel. Please, before anything, please comment, like, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Trying to get to 100 by the new year. That would be awesome. Please let me know what you think of these videos. In today's video, we're going to be doing the Pacific Draft What-If series. We've been doing them the past few weeks. We started with the Atlantic, then Metro, then Central, ending with the Pacific Division. So basically what we do is I'm going to go through each team in the Pacific Division and go off a draft decision that maybe a decision they should have made instead over the last 10 to 15 years. And again, not going to do a draft where it was like a seventh round pick that they should have snagged up, because that means everyone kind of fucked up in that draft. It's a player that was in the first round or maybe early second that they picked, and maybe a guy a few picks later would have been a lot better for that team in that point in time, right? So however they're doing in that point in time, whether it's recent or maybe a few more years earlier, if it would have benefited them. So let's get right into it. The Anaheim Ducks, and like I said before, please comment, like, subscribe. Let's get right into it.
Tavares coming out, sends it in a goal. They score! They score! Holy mackerel, they score! Morgan Riley! Mo Riley! The Leafs have won it! They're going to the second round!
Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10 to 5! Oh, the play of the year in the NFL!
So the Anaheim Ducks, they've actually had a pretty solid draft history with guys like Jackson Lacombe, Lucas Dostal, Seneca, obviously Leo Carlson, Pavel Mitnyakov, Olin Zellweger, Cutter Gauthier. Cutter Gauthier was a trade, but still a very solid draft history. So we have to go back to 2014 for this one, where they drafted Nick Ritchie, 10th overall. I mean, at one point, I think Leaf fans were saying, I think it was Nick Kyprios, that fucking clown, said, trade Nick Ritchie for William Nylander. Happy we didn't do that. I mean, he was a solid power forward, almost 500 games, but 31 points career high. He's now playing in Slovakia. A player at that time was Anaheim in the mid-2010s. I mean, they're obviously on the rise again, but the mid-2010s, they were a powerhouse. They were going to Western second round, third round every single year. Getting beaten the teams by like Chicago, LA, right, San Jose. They maybe lacked a little bit more skill. They had the toughness with Getzlaf and Perry. So I think a player who really would have provided that skill was a player who actually went 11th, so right after Nick Ritchie, and that's Kevin Fiala. I mean, 670 games played, 502 points, 85 career high with Minnesota a few years back. It's a consistent 60 to 70 point guy. Like I said, they were a heavy physical two-way team, and they had Kessler, Perry, Getzlaf, obviously, Fowler on the back end, Silverberg, but maybe to add a little bit more offensive flair, I think Fiala during that time would have been awesome for that team. Next up, we got LA, and they've actually had, again, like some solid draft history the last few years, but this one seems kind of obvious. I was going to go back to 2019, where they drafted Alex Turcotte, 5th overall. It's early. He's still fairly young, but I mean, we're talking about a draft that was 6 years ago. I think it's fair to say he's on that verge of a bust, or already a bust. I mean, only 120 games played, less or just over 30 points. Up and down the minor. I think last year was his first full year and didn't really do too much. He showed some growth, but nothing crazy. And again, a player, we talked about him last week, I think. He went 6th overall right after, and that's Mo Seider. I mean, again, we're talking about 6'2" plus, 200 plus right-hand shot defenseman. I think the offensive game is there. But again, if he puts up 50 points a year and does what he does on both sides of the ice, I mean, talking about a just superstar type defenseman. You could also go to 7th overall in Dylan Cousins. Another centerman to back up with maybe Byfield and Kopitar. Like, that would be a ridiculous three lines of centerman. But I'm going to go with Seider here. Again, almost 400 games played, almost 200 points. Could have learned great under Drew Doughty. I think he would have been a better fit than Brandt Clark. I like Brandt Clark, but Mo Seider to me is a Stanley Cup winning defenseman that every team would want. So that's who I got for LA. Next up, this one's tough. So I have Seattle, and obviously they've only had, like 4 or 5 fucking years in the NHL, and it's kind of hard to tell. I'm going to go with one just because of how nasty this one player has been. So in 2022, Seattle drafted Shane Wright, 4th overall, fellow Burlingtonian. And, he's picking it up. Obviously, he slipped in the draft and everything. He was expected the 1st overall pick, exceptional status, slipped to 4th, had a tough kind of first 2 years. Last year was really solid, I think like a 45, 47-point year. He's on a decent run this year. Seattle's playing good hockey right now. It's still so early. He still could be that franchise #1 center, or maybe a very solid second-line center. But just for how sick the next player has been in this draft, I think I got to give it to him. Cutter Gauthier went right after, 5th overall pick. 101 games played, 32 goals, 34 points, 66 points. He's like top 5 in goals in the league right now. Could end up being already a 40 goal guy this year, potentially a 50 goal guy in his entire career. I mean, I still think Shane Wright's going to be good, and he could end up being what his value was when he was getting drafted. But I think right now with what Cutter Gauthier is doing on the wing of maybe Matty Beniers at this time would definitely bring a lot more fans into the seats and make Seattle not as irrelevant as they are right now. Next up, Edmonton. And this, I guarantee they would have a Stanley Cup if they made this draft decision. So I don't even have to say, I already know what I'm fucking going to say. 2016, they drafted Jesse Puljujärvi 4th overall after a dominant World Juniors with a stacked Finland team with Laine, Aho, Rantanen, Olli Juolevi, who we'll definitely get to later in this video. Just a complete bust. 387 games played, just over 120 points. There could be a few guys on this list Edmonton would have drafted, made a lot of sense, but the one who I think just makes the most sense, and a guy who's beaten them back-to-back years, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, went 6th overall, Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, nothing much else to say. It's a complete rat and game changer, complete gamer, 2-time Cup champ, like I said, over 600 games played, over 600 points, almost a career point per game player. And who knows, maybe what he would force his way out like he did in Calgary, but just another Alberta city. I think playing with McDavid would be a lot more enticing and Draisaitl on that. I think he's the type of player that Edmonton needs, and I would almost guarantee they'd have a cup if they made that draft decision. Next up, Vegas. Similar to Seattle, definitely a few more years, but and also they've been so good they barely have had first round picks because they fucking trade them all the time because they're always in the hunt. But I'm gonna go to 2017, their first ever draft pick, and this seems obvious. Cody Glass went 6th overall. He turns out to be made of glass as well. 262 games, almost 100 points. The talent was always there, but just injuries and just inconsistent play, he just wasn't the right guy. And I had to go a few picks lower than Cody Glass. There's no one key. There's a few other draft picks like Elias Anderson, some other kind of busts later on. So I'm actually going to go to the 12th overall pick, and that's Martin Necas. Just a guy. I mean, Vegas, when they're in their cup run, they had speed, they had physicality. I think Martin Necas paired on the wing of like Jack Eichel. I think the speed of that line, you just couldn't stop. See what he's doing with McKinnon. I think Eichel, he would be doing just as well. I mean, almost 500 games played, over 350 points, now making $11 million a year. Definitely a mistake Vegas made. Was thinking, obviously fans maybe were thinking maybe Peyton Krebs. But if you think about it, yes, they drafted Peyton Krebs. He's not a great player, but at least they used him for the Eichel trade. That's why I didn't want to go down that route, because I think Peyton Krebs and the player taken after Peyton Krebs was Thomas Harley. So you can make that argument as well. But again, you got Jack Eichel with Peyton Krebs. So I'm going to stick with that one. I'm sticking with Cody Glass. Should have drafted Marty Necas. Next up, the San Jose Sharks. And again, similar thing. They haven't had too many picks, but a lot of their picks they've done well. It's either they haven't had a pick or they've picked in the top 5 with like Will Smith, Celebrini, Eklund, 7th overall a few years ago. I'm going to go to 2018 NHL draft. They drafted Ryan Merkley, 21st overall. This is a complete bust. He is my age group. I remember playing him in minor hockey. He was obviously, the talent was there. He went 1st overall to the Guelph Storm. He never got off the ice. They just swapped his partner for how good he was. I just heard, and this is what I've heard. He was my age group, so you hear a lot of rumors. I heard he's a complete dickhead. I heard he had massive attitude problems. Pretty sure Bob McKenzie, the day of the draft, said if it wasn't for his attitude and ignorance and everything, he'd be a lot higher in the draft because all the talent was there. I mean, I saw it firsthand when he was 16, 17, but it's a complete dick. I'm going to be completely honest from what I've heard. I mean, only 39 games played. I think he's in the fucking Russia right now. And the player who went right after him, a player who I think will still be in San Jose to this day if they drafted him, a nice skating, big defenseman doing great in Carolina right now, Keandre Miller. 380 games played, 140 points, just a big, smooth skating demon. Not a crazy, when you're talking about players like, Puljujärvi, Tkachuk, nothing as crazy, but still a very effective player who I think would still be in San Jose till this day and maybe a big ad for that team. Next up, the Vancouver Canucks. And my brother's a big Vancouver fan, so this is going to hurt, and this is going to be similar to the Edmonton one. I have to do it. I don't like doing the same players in the same video, but I have to for this scenario. 2016, drafted Olli Juolevi, probably the biggest bust in franchise history. I'm trying to think of another one. 5th overall, was dominant in London, dominant in the World Juniors, like I said, a lot of the Finnish guys, but 41 games played, 3 points, and now he's back home in Finland, I'm pretty sure. Probably the biggest bust in franchise history. And again, who is the next pick? Matthew Tkachuk. 6th overall. I already said everything about him. So, yeah, definitely a massive miss there for Vancouver. Finally, the last team we're going to get into is the Calgary Flames. They're they've had some solid draft history, not too many crazy misses. One I'm going to go to is back in the 2017 draft where, their team was solid. They had Gaudreau, they had Tkachuk kind of really growing up and putting up some numbers. They weren't that, top of the division quite yet, but they're getting there. They were young. Gaudreau was still putting up numbers. They had Monahan, all that stuff. They drafted Juuso Valimaki, 16th overall. Average D-man. He had a good year, I think, in Arizona a few years back. He's still in Utah. Nothing crazy. But a player who they really could have used down the middle, who I've said a few weeks ago, 4 picks later, 20th overall, Robert Thomas. Talking about, Sean Monahan, Elias Lindholm, Robert Thomas. I think maybe they don't make that Elias Lindholm trade. I'm not sure. I don't think he was traded then at that point. I could be wrong there. But even if he was, having those 3 centermen, maybe they get past Edmonton a few years ago when they lost in Game 5 to McDavid's OT winner. You're talking about almost a career point per game player, 408 points in 481 games. Just really could have dominated that middle ice with Sean Monahan, Elias Lindholm, and Robert Thomas. And yeah, Valimaki didn't do too much in Calgary. Well, there you have it, guys. I want to keep it nice and short here. I'm trying to watch the football right now. But again, please comment, like, subscribe. Again, I'm trying to get to 100 by the new year. I'm trying to do these shorter videos for you. So I understand that maybe checking in on our podcast could be a long time. It can be an hour and a half podcast, depending on how the Bills or the Leafs do. But also, please check out the Buds Mafia podcast. Let me know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe. Check out Buds and Pucks on Twitter, X, and TikTok. Go Buds. See you guys later.
Tavares coming out, sends it in a goal. They score! They score! Holy mackerel, they score! Morgan Riley! Mo Riley! The Leafs have won it! They're going to the second round!
Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5! Oh, the play of the year in the